through Article 41 and 42, based on which only several Act and regulations are coming into picture. In that hierarchy, the Electricity Act 2003 is insisting safety to the people under regulation. The CEA has been formed accordingly. So CEA is empowered under Regulation 53 to coordinate with the state governments in framing regulation for enforcing safety to the general public at large. Accordingly, the regulations have been prescribed. Previously, it was the electricity rules, 1937 and 1956. Now that 2010, see regulation 2010 has replaced all those things. Now we have come up with the new regulation 2023, that is measures relating to safety in electrical safety. So with this new introduction, we have covered most of the ambiguities and vague ideas which were prevailing in the S2I standards and regulations. Now that there could be some scope of interpretation against others, that I hope in this session we can resolve those issues, or we can address something that can be done to the society at large and the implementers at large. Thank you, Mr. Gopal. That's all what I can say.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. As the panelist, my first question is to Mr. Amritlal. Mr. Amritlal, on the screen, I'm showing the regulation. I'm sure you and all of us already must have read most of the regulations. Now, one of the confusing subject all over India was earthing, and definitions sometimes were not good. And now in the regulations, for example, you can see bonding conductor. There is a new definition, and for example, earthing, there is a new regulation. Earthing means connection of exposed conductive parts and extraneous conductive part to the earthing terminal. So all these has come. What is your opinion about these new definitions?
Yeah, good morning to all. The definition is good. The only problem is what I find is in regulation, the term duplicate connection, distinct and duplicate connection is required. Like that, it is getting repeated everywhere. Now, the problem, what usually the installers will have, whether it is talking about separate earth bus bar or equipotential bonding. So that type of confusion is there throughout the regulation. So I would like, if there is anybody from regulatory body, they can explain it, what they actually mean by that.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So basically, there are some advantage, and in between there is some, still the
confusion is there.
Kumar, can I just put
please.
See, when they say the two distinct connections, it should not be taken as two different terminals. It should be taken as two different paths through which the earth connection shall be given. So if one of the earth wire breaks, one of the protected conductor breaks, at least it should have another path to reach to the earth. So in that way, it should be interpreted.
Yeah, actually, it is talking about two connections. Now the requirement of two connections
means two different protective conductors which are taking you to the earth terminal, earth electrode.
Actually, sir, this has got some technical background as well. For example, once when these two connections were introduced during maybe 1950s, there was no IP. Ingress protection was not existing, and most of the equipment, the earth connections were on the outer casing of the equipment. Let's say, for example, a motor. But later, once when the ingress protection was introduced in the standards, the earth terminals were people started keeping it inside a protected, mechanically protected place, which is either inside the panel board or something like that. But this practice is not popular in India. We still have panel boards where the earth terminals are, or the earth bus bar is extended outside. So if the connections are from outside, of course, mechanically it can get corroded or somebody disconnecting, and those chances are there. So two connections are required. Now there is another technical reason. For example, if you look at IS 732, I think clause 5.1.6 or so, there is a requirement of limiting the leakage current in an electrical equipment appliance. The maximum leakage current in a fixed installation of more than a current using equipment more than 32 amps, the maximum allowed leakage current is 10 milliampere. If the leakage current is more than 10 milliampere, we are supposed to make a reinforced protective measure. And one of the reinforced protective measure is to have two connections. So basically, technically, these two connections are required. You can even see it in the IS 732. You just search reinforced protective measure, then you will be able to get it. So basically, this is a requirement. So I hope, Mr. Amrit, this is clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Sir, Mr. Gopal sir.
Yes, please.
Hello. I think Amrital is not convinced on this. So I can supplement some more thing. In the new regulation, most of the things have been resolved. They say what they say under the heading of earthing up to not exceeding 60 volt, etc. What they mean is two separate and distinct connections with the earthing system. Previously, people misconstrued that there should be some earth electrode in the switchboard at one end and another earth electrode at the lift and something going on. So now that it is clearly defined as earthing system, what we can infer is it is only a redundancy. We did not give much of weightage to the two separate and distinct earthing connections because it has been giving a new look in the new regulation. That's what I think.
So I just put that part in the chat box. You can see the definition of earthing arrangement or earthing system. So you have to have two connections to the earthing arrangement or earthing system. Means all the electric connections and devices involved in the earthing of a system and installation or equipment. So these two connections are actually to that part. Hope it's clear now. Thank you, Mr. Amrit Lal. Now let me go to the next question. Very important question. Saliji, we were working together in the BIS, in the NEC, and during COVID also we were restlessly working, and we had our committee meeting. In addition, we were meeting and discussing several points. And one of the important point which we were always discussing was regulation number, the earlier regulation number 12. Sub-regulation 2, which says the NEC may be followed, and now in the new regulation, the system is much more clear. So what is your opinion on this?
Yeah, so this is actually result of our persistent efforts we have been taking for this change in a small word, because shall be and maybe makes a lot of difference, maybe gives option of the person who refers the regulation whether to use it or not, and shall be, it makes it mandatory. So whatever has been given in the regulations, it now says that the standards and codes are now mandatory. See, like you see, when the bare law is there, it doesn't give you all the interpretations. On that bare law, a lot of books come out and they give the detailing. Like that, this is the bare regulation. And on that, if you want to really interpret it and go into specific system of working of material, then you must refer the standards and codes. Now this has become mandatory, and if you don't follow that, so that will be actually in contradiction or a breach of regulation, that is punishable, as we know. So this is a very good change that has come out, and the implementation in accordance with that through the regulators, inspectorate wings, is now becomes a very, very important part. So in accordance, if we see our forms 1, 2, and 3, I think they still are not totally in line with the standard formats which are given in the, if you can consider the PPQQ RRSS forms which are given in the IS 732. So they slightly differ. So in accordance, I think we expect few changes in the formats given by form 1, 2, 3, 4 also. See, there is one option in the regulations which allows the governments, state governments, to make some deviations. But in respect of this regulation number 32 or 45 now, So in respect to regulation 32, it has been mentioned that we cannot make any deviation in the regulation 32. So in accordance, the form 1, 2, 3, 4 being part of that regulation 32, we cannot make any change. So there are a few limitations. In accordance, we should consider how to come out of that. Because as per my knowledge and as per my experience, I can tell you the same forms cannot be applied to all type of installations. There are some particular type of installations like high-rise buildings. We need to consider those from different angle. For hospital buildings, we need to consider from different angles. And in accordance, there should be some changes in the formats. So I think still we await to make few change in the format, or at least allow the local governments to make the respective.
Yes.
forms.
Thank you, sir. But one sub question. Now you see in the regulation number 2, NEC and NBC are made mandatory. And
Yes.
if where relevant Indian standards are not available, international standards shall be followed. And
Yes.
if we look at the definition of international standard, so here, for example, the international standard, where is it?
So I understand actually your point. It should be specific to IEC only. So
Yes,
that's
yes.
mentioned there.
Yeah, standard. You see this one, the standard. Standard means Indian standard, and in the absence of Indian standard, International Electrotechnical Commission standard, Institute of. Now the regulation is allowing as a sequence. First is IS standard, then IEC standard, then IEEE, then European norms standard. Actually, I don't know what this European norms standard.
Yes.
So all these are allowed. But do you think that in Europe somebody will allow at the last of the sequence, if nothing is available, follow Indian standard? Will they allow, an European nation will allow Indian standard to follow?
I don't think so.
No, we are allowing our electrical installations to follow European norms if there is no Indian standard. Now what will happen is, manufacturers and the people with business interest, they will try to interpret the wordings of the standard, and they will claim, for example, this subject is explained only in the European standard. It is not in the Indian standard, IEC standard, and the IEEE standard. Then they will try to claim that you have to follow European standard.
Yes.
So this is going to be a challenge. Now the question is, first of all, we should understand that almost all 100% subjects IS or 90% IS standards are there. 100% subjects IEC standards are available, but we can interpret that a typical particular subject is not there in both the standards, so European norms can be followed. My question is, will an European nation allow an Indian standard to be followed in that nation? Let's say Britain.
I don't think so. I don't think they will allow.
What is your opinion say on this, allowing the European standards?
See, I think we should have limited our scope up to IEC standards only. So
yes,
it should not be inclusion of IEEE and all the standards, because that may create a lot of confusion, and there may be some controversies also. Somebody may ask to follow that, will refer this standard. At least they should have given a sequence also. If not in this, then this, then this, then this. That much clarity, if they can provide, I think that will reduce.
Yeah. So thanks for the answer. Now our question is regarding the Chartered Electrical Safety Engineer to Sri James Kutty sir. James Kutty sir, the question is the Chartered Electrical Safety Engineer. Earlier it was section 5A, and now it is section 6 or regulation number 6. So all of us know that 2015 it has come out, but only few states are trying to make the CESE. Any reasons, can you tell why the state governments are a little bit reluctant in implementing this regulation or making CESEs available for people to make self-certification?
Good morning, everybody. Actually, I'm surprised why the individual governments are not implementing this. It can be noticed that many states have conducted examinations for appointing a chartered electrical safety engineer, but still not sure whether they appointed them. Also, many states released notifications based upon the CA guidelines for CESE. why the states and the central government not appointing CESC to handle the appropriate installations below the notified voltage as per regulations 34 and 45. I understand that many states are there pending to declare even the notified voltage. Another fact, I understand that many of the inspectors in service are reluctant to implement this, fearing they get lost their opportunities to inspect. Remember, you have no right to inspect any of the installations below notified voltage without the consent of the consumer. So, for a safe installation, please appoint CESC. Otherwise, actually, you are violating the regulation itself by which you may get penalized. That's
Okay,
about
sir,
this
okay.
question, Goma.
Thank you. But there is a sub question as well. See, for example, if you look at the formats to be filled in the schedule 2, there are formats, form 1, form 2, form
Okay.
1 and 2 applicable for voltages up to 650 volt. Let's say our main topic is low voltage. So up to
Okay,
250 volt, form 1 and 2, is it sufficient to ensure safety in a consumer premise? Let's say a larger consumer premise such as a hospital, filling this form and making this test, is it sufficient?
Actually, Sari sir already explained about this, about the forms 1, 2, and 3. As per this regulation, we have to follow or we have to inspect as per NEC 2023, IS 732, 3043, etc. But that forms 1 and 2 of Schedule 2 have limited entries. For example, nowhere the type of earthing configuration, loop impedance, etc. are mentioned in these forms, which are having vital role with the safety of the installation. So these forms are inadequate in many respects. Okay, thank you.
Also, if we look at the list of the tools, actually for some more information were there in the draft, which was, I think, removed. Also, the list of tools and the list of meters to be used by the chartered electrical safety engineer, that also is inadequate. Now, anyway, it's all continuous improvement. We have to work further to improve it. Thanks for the answer. Now,
I just want to add a few words on this. See, regarding these forms, actually, I had given suggestion to add the name of chartered electrical safety engineer below that checklist. But now, if you see, just the consumer has to sign that checklist. So, consumer is not a technical person who can fill the form and sign that. So, there has to be compulsory sign of chartered electrical safety engineer below that form. So, that is missing if you see.
Yes, I'm trying to show that in the screen. So this is the form 2, which is included. So you mean to say at the end of
this thing, all these things are technical, but how a common man can sign this? Supplier owner, how owner can sign this technical information?
Okay, so ideally it should have been the chartered electrical safety
only there should be a
signature.
There should be a countersign of the owner, and sign should be of the chartered electrical safety engineer. So this suggestion we already have given. I had given this suggestion to CA, but I think that now is not seen to be considered. And if you see here, even there is no point of earth fault loop impedance in form 1. There it is mentioned in form 2, and there is only question whether it is tested or not. So does it make it safe? Anyone can say, yeah, it is tested. But what was the result? Was it satisfactory or not? That doesn't answer.
Yeah. Actually, the ideally somewhere if they could have made a note saying that the forms in IS 732 can be added for larger installations, then only the requirement as per for a larger installation can be
tested and found satisfactory. These 2 words also they can add. Was it tested and found satisfactory? So
yeah. But now you see, for example, this one where I'm highlighting where the consumer's earth electrode is properly executed and has been tested. If yes, give value of earth resistance. Now, for example, this is applicable only in case of a low voltage consumer premise.
Yes.
Imagine the supply voltage is a high voltage and it is converted to with a transformer, the LV is used within the consumer premise. People may try to misinterpret it. They will still ask where is the earth electrode resistance value. This is actually to substantiate the regulation 18. Now coming back to the regulation 18 and 19, I have a question to Apau sir. Let me first show the regulations. Earlier it was 14, 15, 16. Now it is 16, 17, 18, the DISCOM, the responsibility of the DISCOM. 16, switchgear on consumer premise, identification of earthed neutral and earthed neutral conductor and the earthed terminal on consumer premise. Now, Apau sir, a serious question. Do you know any DISCOM in India who follows this regulation?
Right, very vital question. Sir, we have too many actions, not only ultra questions, as well as property laws in the case of fire, as well as equipment laws. Whenever there is a over voltage reflected from the suppliers network, that is DISCOM network. Actually, this regulation, especially the present regulation 18, 16, 17, 18. 16, we will take it up later to say switchgear at the consumer premises. 17 relates to the earth terminal, and 18 is the specific regulation that I will deal with now. It has been refined now. Actually, this regulation are mostly century-old regulation. It existed in 1937 before the codes and standards were in existence. Subsequently, it was reflected in 1956 and in the regulation 2010 as well as the present regulation 2023. It has attempted to modify according to regulation 18. They have introduced the wording under sub-regulation 1 as per relevant standards. That's a welcoming trend. And the proviso also they have introduced some specific classes. That is the last class. And the same shall be interlinked with the earth terminal mentioned in sub-regulation 1 through a suitable link. This is what we call the supplier's responsibility of providing a link, that is earth neutral link at the consumer premises. Apart from that, especially for the 250 for the consumers whose voltage doesn't exceed 250 volts, for the consumers with higher voltage, they have to use their own earthing system. The two should be interconnected. This all tends to what this all is tending towards a common common wording, that is MET. That MET is to be followed. Then the earth terminal should be provided by the supplier. This is the norm. But unfortunately, when the consumer tries to connect his earthing terminal with the supplier's earthing terminal, all the problems will occur. The temporary over voltage. These temporary over voltage shall definitely occur because the suppliers themselves are adopting various measures throughout this country. I can see within the same distribution circle of the same DISCOM, they adopt a TT system, they adopt a TNC, and TNC plus TT. So something is confusing. They don't know, the construction people don't know what is the responsibility of the DISCOM. It is a responsibility of the DISCOM as per regulation 43.2. Just we can refer that 43.2 also in the slide for the people, for the audience. That is regulation 43.2 says neutral conductor shall also be earthed at one or more points along with the distribution system or service line in addition to any connection with the earth which shall be at the consumer's premises. This is totally absent. They also say that it should be as per standard. What standards say? As per IS 732 class 4.5.2.2.3, it actually fixes the responsibility. The responsibility is with the supplier. Actually, these things are not known to the supplier as well as the consumer because the absence of totally abiding by the standards, regulations for the past over 100 years, I can say, that has misled the consumers. What consumers can do, they just want to have their equipment safeguarded, have their life safeguarded. They fear. I can say that none of the consumers, at least 90% of the consumers are reluctant. They can't connect that extra terminal with the suppliers extra terminal because they don't know what is the arrangement of the suppliers network, whether they have interconnection to substation, whether they have provided PME, whether they have provided multiple neutral earthing of neutral conductor. These are totally alien to the consumer. That's why the standard provide the responsibility with the supplier. Though we have to make aware of the supplier also in order to avoid any hazard at the consumer premise.
So, sir,
Yes,
to
sir.
simply to conclude, none of the most or not none, we really sometimes don't know. Majority of the cases, the earthed terminal or the regulation 16, 17, 18 of the current regulations, especially the earthed terminal, which is there in regulation 18, which was earlier the regulation number 16, it was not provided by the electricity supplier in most of the cases. Actually, I was in Kerala last week. So there, the electricity supply company is giving a funny network. It looks like a TT, but on the distribution, the neutral conductor is earthed, whereas the earthed terminal is not available in the consumer premise because it looks like a TT at the consumer premise, and at the distribution it looks like a TNCS with the PME. Actually, we need to have something. We have to do a research, and we have to put some new names for this kind of non-standard and systems. I would say most of the lot of accidents in consumer premise are due to this non-standard methods of supply by the DISCOM. Anyway, I don't know how we can take it up and protect the interest of the consumers. Now, coming back to the questions again, I have a small question about Regulation 37. Which is talking about the supply and use of electricity. My question is to Shashiraj sir. The question is at the point of commencement of supply, this the table second one, 11 kV and above, a circuit breaker by consumer. So basically, if we read this regulation, it says every consumer of 11 kV and above, they should have a circuit breaker, means maybe an PCB. But earlier, switches were also allowed. Sir, what is your say on this? Your opinion on this?
Well, definitely, I think it is going to add up to the costing factor because 11 kV, we have very small installations, which is commercial nature, and they would like to go into these HT connections, and obviously it is 11 kV connections, and it would definitely add up to the costing. But I don't know now, like how they have gone into this, in what angle they have looked these factors into while accommodating a circuit breaker by all 11 kV consumers. Earlier, as you rightly said, there was a distinction between voltage class and the connected load. And load also was a criteria before fixing the requirement of a breaker. But they have done away with that, and your other doubt also, or question was whether it is applicable to DISCOMs. Well, the regulation 37 has to be read entirely from 37.1 to 8, and then only it is applicable to most of the installation. Whereas very clearly 37.2, which very clearly states that it is at the point of commencement of supply, and it also says that it is to be provided by consumer. Obviously, it goes without telling that it is applicable only to consumers, and regardless of whatever voltage, I mean, based on voltage only, the requirement of primary protection is to be provided. Obviously, this 37.2 does not apply to DISCOMs. But it does apply to DISCOMs when you come to 37.3, where it speaks of only a transformer, whether, I mean, we have to read it very carefully, The transformer means a transformer provided by a consumer as well as by DISCOM. By default, it also goes without telling that the DISCOM stations are also included in 37.3. And here there is a specific requirement on 37.3.2, where for a supplier's installation, the secondary protection up to 1000 kVA it is exempted with a breaker, and only beyond 1000 it is required. But we hardly have any distribution transformers in excess of 1000 kVA, at least in our state, so it hardly matters for them. But then since we have had interactions with ESCOMs, the ESCOM transformers being in the public place, there is the breakers provided are, for that matter, the MCCBs provided on the secondary side also are terribly vulnerable for theft. So they say that a fuse is something, even a fuse also is many times in rural sectors is taken away, and there is theft on that end also. So to that extent, they say that you would want to protect, but with a fuse. So that is the understanding which has happened in Karnataka state. And even with respect to the primary GOS, which was already existing probably about 15 years back, all the primary GOS were initially, they were sealed because they thought that 11 kV, there was a theft at the 11 kV end at the point of commencement of, before the point of commencement of supply. So later on, by around 2000, they have done away with the GOS also on the primary side. So now that it is, this 37.2 specifically talks about consumers. So it is universal that as far as DISCOMs are concerned, the point of commencement of supply does not apply at all. The primary control does not apply. But when we come to 37.3, it does apply, and DISCOMs, all stations of DISCOMs are required to have protection on the primary side for transformers above 1000 and above. But obviously the DISCOMs are all have stations, and only probably around 2005 in the state of Karnataka, we were not inspecting the stations of the DISCOMs before provision of the drawings. But now we have made it mandatory for all 66 kV or 33 kV and of course the KPTCL transmission companies with 110 and 220 and 400 to approve the drawings by the electrical inspectorate, similar to the consumer gets his HT installation approved by us. They have to also get it approved, provide the breaker.
Sir, I would like to interrupt. I would like to interrupt and
please.
ask one question. Now the heading of the question is supply and use of electricity.
Yes.
So probably this part is applicable only to the consumer premise, where a DISCOM is supplying and the consumer is using the electricity. Will it be like that?
No. See, that's precisely what I was trying to tell. 37 speaks generally of all the installations when it comes to supply by the supplier to a consumer. And 37.2 specifically speaks of the consumer protection because it is at the point of commencement of supply. And that definition, point of commencement of supply, applies to only consumer.
Yes. Yeah.
So 37.2 refers exclusively for the consumer, but 37.3 does apply for the DISCOMs as well. Because every transformer they are required to provide, which was not provided earlier because most of the stations were without the breakers and there was a lot of accidents, and station interruptions were also there. So now we have made it very clear and very sure for them that they have to get the drawings approved, and we will issue an approval for before charging, and that is recorded. Similar to the end consumer as well.
Thank you, sir. Also, you told that the DISCOMs are telling that if they put a circuit breaker, it is stolen. So the circuit breakers and even fuses are stolen. But then we have to ask a question back to them. How many of your engineers are properly closing the distribution board which is on the roadside? They open it for a repair or a connection and they never try to keep it in a closed and in a secured position. They keep it open, and if they keep their property open, of course, people will steal it. So they cannot escape with this statement saying that this is my interpretation. I hope you
when
agree.
in Karnataka, the KERC came in the year 1999-2000, they came with a bank. And to tell you, I was interacting with KERC and they said, if the numbers of electrical accidents does not reduce, they are going to be severely punishable, the ESCOMs. But then it never got implemented and it was only on paper. And they also made the electrical inspectorate to go around the city of Bangalore and elsewhere, most of the cities, the mere mention of your boards and even the street switchboards being open, they wanted it to be cleared, and we made a drive. And then we intimated all such locations to the supplier. You know, supplier has got, I think, 1 into 1,000 times the staff got electrical inspectorate got, and they have a specific O&M which is meant only for this purpose, and they are supposed to do it, and they don't do it. That is, suppose the order of the day, and they have the strong arm tactics because they are in close contact with the government.
Thank
And
you.
day in
Thank
and
you.
out, although the earlier Act 1910 had defined that the electrical inspector is the advisor to government, it is never been the fact in, at least in Karnataka. The advice was never taken from the electrical inspector. It was the other
Yes.
way around.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
They
sir.
used to
Thanks
call
for
it
the
short.
detailed. Thanks for the detailed answer, sir. Thank you very much. Now I
Thank you.
have to go to the next.
Gopakumar, just a minute, Gopakumar. I think
Yeah.
we should read this regulation with regulation number 16, where supply is required to put their own circuit breaker at the point of supply. So this regulation doesn't give any exemption from that regulation number 16. That is irrespective of the voltage level. You can just check the regulation number 16.
Regulation
more
number
thing.
16.
In belonging to the supplier, I think.
Yeah, switchgear on consumer premise. The
Yes.
supplier shall provide a suitable switchgear in each conductor, every service line. Yes.
Yes, it is there. So it is not exempted. So supplier has to provide his own switchgear, as well as consumer shall also provide his own switchgear.
So will it be
Just
double?
But sir,
one more
in
point.
16, it is belonging to the supplier. And in
Yes.
37, it is by the consumer.
Yeah, sir. The interpretation can be the supplier has to provide a switchgear. In addition, the consumer also have to put one
Yes,
more
yes.
switchgear.
So,
So then it
one is
becomes double.
before point of supply and one at the point of
Yeah.
supply. So that is a distinction.
Yeah.
But,
Can I just make
So
a
I would
point?
like to ask one of the financial implication for smaller consumers. Let us say, look at the regulation number 37. Every consumer should provide 11 kV and above. They have to provide switch gear, which is shown in the sub-regulation number 2. A question to Mr. Amritlal. Mr. Amritlal, imagine MSMEs of, let's say, smaller transformer, 150 kVA, 200 kVA, making a 11 kV circuit breaker to their installation. What is your opinion on that? This will be, will be an expensive job?
Yeah, it is an expensive job. One more thing I have to add, the point of commencement is not defined anywhere. So that is going to create another problem between 37.2 and 3. And
Yes,
coming back to your question, this VCB, indoor type VCB costs around 5 lakhs, whereas AB switch with the HRC fuse costs around 1.5 lakhs. And if you suppose if you are putting up the breaker on pole, that is outdoor type, even then the cost difference is very big. Like VCB with will cost outdoor type will cost around something like 2.25 lakhs, whereas a simple AB switch with the dropout fuse will cost only some 35,000 rupees. So there is a definite issue in 37.2.3 with regard to MSMEs and small entrepreneurs.
So thank you. Thank you.
Why I pointed out 37.2 and 3, The reason is whether we have to have a separate switchgear for the transformer, and at the point of commencement, you need to have another VC. So I think there is a lack of clarity on that as well.
Yeah, I think there are some discoms, those who say that, if example I'm saying, I'm applying for a connection and the discom says, sorry, we don't have a circuit breaker. You buy and install a circuit breaker, but it comes to my account. Like, you buy the meter and test it and put it into the circuit, something like that. So there can be issues as well. Now I go back to
in fact, in the state of Karnataka, the transformer, the protective devices, the cabling from this one across the street, everything is done by a consumer. And it is after 1 year, it is handed over back to the ESCOM. The buying portion is from the consumer, handing over portion to ESCOM after 1 year. So
I think in some states are immediately, as soon as you install it, money is yours, property is discoms.
No, here they have gone one step higher, that you have to maintain for 1 year. If it conks out within 1 year, you have to provide it again and give it back only after 1 year. That is to say, when it is safe and it can be taken back to ESCOM, they take it back. So that's
okay,
the
thank you. Thanks for adding the answer, sir. Thanks for adding the answer further. So now we have only limited time. We have 50 minutes past. Thank you. Now, the next question is to Saliji. Saliji, we know that the regulation which we were discussing, regulation number 16, the DISCOM is not following. The consumers sometimes are not following the necessary safety measures. And finally, it is leading to 15,000 average electrocutions across India per year. And you know the gravity of fire accidents, fire from short circuit or fire from electricity, which is happening all over India. Sometimes the DISCOMs are not following, not sometime, DISCOMs are most of the time not following the regulation. Also, the consumer premises are becoming unsafe. So the question to you is, we are finding violations almost every day and everywhere. How a common man can make a complaint, and where a common man should make a complaint in case of these violations, and how a common man can enforce that these regulations are not violated? Your say on that, Saliji.
Okay. I will like to call your attention at section 151 of Electricity Act 2003, that is regarding cognizance of offense. It says no court shall take cognizance of an offense punishable under this act except upon a complaint in writing made by appropriate government or appropriate commission or any of their officers authorized by them, or the chief electrical inspector or licensee or generating companies. So common man has no reach to the court to ask for injustice on this violation. Only he can approach to the nearest electrical inspector or to the CGRF, Consumer Grievances Forum, and where he can make a complaint. So that is the limitation as per our law.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to add one point there. We had one case in Karnataka where we implemented this section 151, and then we booked the case against the ESCOM, the cable, this Hathway cable people, and the Bangalore City Corporation as well. And very funnily, without our knowledge, the provision itself was removed from Karnataka's this one jurisdiction of electrical inspector. 151 was removed without our knowledge. So that is how it works. So that was the first case we booked on both the corporation and the Hathway network and ESCOM, all three put together, for the death of a small child. And they removed that clause itself.
This means the accident is, no one is bothered about the accident.
Of ESCOMs, yes, to a certain extent.
So the case is because of a rule. Let us remove the rule. Accident is immaterial. The life of people is not. The life of people is not important.
So what I was trying to tell is the strong arm tactics by the so-called people, they remove the rule itself.
Okay.
Sir, I
It's
would-
funny.
Yeah,
So, sir,
just one point. RAID 136, because of that 136 only this happens. Because diluting the regulation or act by giving a provision to government, state government.
I think such kind of provisions shall not be applicable for in places where safety matters. Am I correct? This is what you are saying. So coming back to the question regarding regulation number 47. The question is to Appavu sir. Sir, in chapter 6, safety provisions for electrical installation and apparatus of voltage exceeding 650 volt, regulation number 47, which is talking about the interlocks and protection of use of electricity at voltage exceeding 650 volt. Here the provisions for avoiding neutral circulating current has been made. This is also probably applicable, not also, this is also applicable for low voltage, but this is this regulation has come under the heading above exceeding 650 volt. What is your say on this? Your opinion on this?
Yes. Actually, the regulation title, that is at voltage exceeding 650, it says interlock and protection. That's the title. But the voltage is exceeding 650. This gives a complete confusion to the consumers as well as the inspectors. But they know that it is applicable for all. For example, you see the sub-regulation 1.3 that says when there is an interlock should be provided for avoiding pack feeding. And another thing, see regulation, sub-regulation 2.4, it insists earth fault relay for 100 kVA DG set. Can we interpret these two things are applicable if the voltage is exceeding 650? Exceeding 650 means 11 kV in our system. At least minimum 11 kV. No 650 existing now. So we should not interpret it as a voltage exceeding 650 because it is applicable for 100 kVA. There is no 100 kVA DG set at 11 kV. You see, and there is interlock is necessary for avoiding paralleling or for avoiding feedback. So we should interpret it out of common sense and science, and technically we should not strictly abide by the regulation. It has become a compulsion. And another thing, these things have arisen due to the removal of voltage classification, HV, LV, MV, which were clearly available in the erstwhile electricity rules. Now that it has been removed, and a complicated phraseology is employed. Above 650, above 250, not exceeding. These are all quite unnecessary. You simply say that LV, MV, HV. Then the question arises, who has to do it? Whether CE or CERC. As per Electricity Act 2003, it should be done by any of these two categories. Because people, we are all hardly wired. Our brains are hardly wired with HV, LV, MV. So why do you remove those things and make these phrases and make it controversial to the science? So the thing is, we should not read the title as voltage exceeding 650. This occurs in several places because of this classification. Because interlock, earthing, most of the things are common to all voltages. But by defining this 650, there should be some special category. If it exceeds 11 kV or 33 kV, it is an EHV installation. There requires some stringent measures. It cannot be for all the protection measures like parallel operation or interlock something. That's what I feel. Finally, we should avoid, the implementer should avoid the word at voltage exceeding 650. Remove it for the sake of.
Or probably if this regulation is made in the chapter 3, or where the general safety measures, where it is applicable for all the voltages, it would have been much better. That is what is the conclusion. Am I correct, sir? Yeah. So
Yeah, I think,
yes, it should be
here,
subject, not voltage wise. That all makes the confusion.
It should be common for all. Saliji, you told
Yes,
something.
there was a similar mistake like this in respect of dry type transformer. It had come under the conditions applicable for transformers having oil over 2000 liters. So I pointed out that if you go along according to this, then most of distribution transformer will not be required as per this dry type regulation. So that regulation they removed from which was under 2000 liters, and that now it's input separately. So that the similar mistake is here with
No,
that
I
100.
just quoted sample cases.
Hello.
Also, sir,
I just
for
quoted
example, when you
sample
look at
cases.
the
Several.
draft,
Hmm.
in the draft, it was not 650 volt. It was actually 1000 volt AC and 1500 volt DC, which was actually in line with the IEC standards or the IS standards. 1000 volt
Yes,
AC, but then
yes,
1000
yes.
volt AC, 1500 volt DC is low voltage. But now in the draft, it was better. But in the final one, again, the 650 came into picture. Can anybody answer what is the basic behind this 650 volt? And now imagine we have a solar rooftop PV system, which is having, let's say, 800 volt DC. In which category it will come under?
Yeah.
And where is it written in the regulation? Can anybody answer, sir?
Sir, actually this 650 volt was existing another, I can say almost 100 years back. During the stories, there was no standard distribution voltages, voltage at various levels. That is repeated and existing for the past 100 years, I can say. Now we are in 2023. From 1937, we can reach 2037 also. It's very sorry state.
Yes, it's quite unfortunate that we still follow 1937, the voltage 650 volt. And but in the draft, it was much better 1000 volt, but again 650 came into picture, and we have to wait another 10 years to change or get a chance to change. Now, coming back
Let
to
us
the
celebrate 100th year. Let us
Yeah,
celebrate
100th
100th year for the change.
Okay. So now coming back to the questions, I have a question, a small question about regulation number 77, which is nothing but the lightning arrestor. Let me scroll down to the regulation. So lightning protection against lightning. My question is to James Kutty, sir. So if we look at the first paragraph of the regulation, it is good. The lightning arrestor shall be, this is applicable for more than 650 volt. That means a HT surge arrestor. As per the relevant standard, it has to be connected. Now in the para number 2, which is highlighted, without touching any metal part to separate vertical earth electrode or junction of the earth matter. Practically what happens is, I show you a picture from a substation. This is a substation, and these wells with the pipe, you can see this picture visible to you on the screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
These are like big cast iron earth electrode. I think each of them are probably maybe 7-8 meters, and there is a water pipe as well to put the water every day. You see here. And now each of these earth pit are connected to the outgoing feeder, 11 kV feeder of the substation, and especially to the surge arrestor. So surge arrestor is at the top of this particular line, and a separate conductor insulated with insulation. It is not touching anywhere. Separately, it is running and connecting to this particular earth electrode. The length of the earth lead in this particular case is approximately 5 to 6 meters. And this is the practice which is followed almost all over India. James Kutty, sir, what is your say on this? Will it work?
Sir, here you can see the change between the old and the new regulations is just the addition of the wording as short as possible. You see in the second para, as short as possible.
Yeah.
Means the leads from the surge arrestors should be as short as possible to avoid the voltage drop or the induced voltage due to the added impedance through the extra length. Being a surge, the effect of DL by dt will have influential role with the voltage. But by this, actually the surge arrestor may not work for its rated surge voltage. That's a problem. Then the added weighting is very important. Means the weight added is very important. But please go through the other portions of this clause. It is just same as from the 2010 regulation. As you know, in India, we implemented the International Lightning Protection Standard IEC 62305/2010 from 2015 onwards. It means after 2010, means the year of the old standard. Still, we are keeping the same weighings with this regulation. Actually, it is making more confused. Whether the lightning protection earthing and the power system earthing can be interlinked. Yes, all of our standards such as NEC 2023, IS 732, IS 3043 and IEEE standards, etc. are supporting this to avoid the potential difference between the two portions and thereby to avoid the damages due to step potential, etc. Now, in this revised CEA safety regulations 2023, we are getting actually more confused regarding this regulation also. This regulation is also making confusions. At least the texts and the expressions should be properly placed to understand the purpose behind instead of making more ambiguity before just copying the old regulation. Of course, the electrical people beyond a profile can understand the purpose, but even a common layman, electrical layman, should understand the regulation. So it is better to revise it accordingly. Thank you.
Yes, I'm just showing the picture of what is written in the Indian standard. This is what is from the Indian standard, especially this lead length, which we call in a surge arrestor, is very important. So the current regulation, especially the paragraph number 2, is creating the confusion. People go for this kind of the connection L1, the first one. Here the explanation is poor. So connection L1 is poor. The connection L3 or the picture number 3 is the best one. That means the lead length of the surge arrestor has to be as short as possible. Now, if you look at the earlier picture which I have shown here, in this picture, the lead length is quite large. So technically speaking, once when you have a longer lead length, the surge arrestor is of a showpiece. It is like a showpiece. It is never going to work because in the lead length, there will be more potential drop. As a result, the surge arrestor is not going to be effective, which is explained in the rules. Now, coming back to the regulation, I would say even if the paragraph number 2 and 3 is removed, the regulation would have been much better. What is your opinion on that, sir? If imagine a situation, the regulation, sub-regulation number 2 and the paragraph number 3 is just removed.
Actually, simply mention it should be done as per the standard. That's enough.
Yes, I think from here onwards, wherever I am highlighting, half of the regulation 1, then sub-regulation number 2 and the paragraph number 3. If all these are removed, the situation would have been much better.
Yes,
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, but the problem is, in my view, why I took up this subject is in BIS, we have the committee ETD 30. So I took up this subject with the last committee meeting, and then we have made a subcommittee to make a study. And I was visiting a lot of substations to make an analysis. Almost 99% of the installations, the lead length is much more, and the surge arresters are of no use. Still, surge arresters are failing, not due to lightning, but it is failing due to temporary overvoltage. And we are in a situation that nobody is bothered about such situation. For example, in Maharashtra, there are transformer terminal mounted surge arresters as well. That means there are cases where this kind of connections are made. So the connection number 3, there are cases in the 11 kV transformer, connection number 3 is also followed in Maharashtra, which is, I would say, very good. So now coming back to the questions, my question is about regulation number 38, which is nothing but the regulation of high-rise building. My question is to Saliji. Saliji, we were actively participating in various discussions. Now, this regulation, which is talking about the high-rise buildings, which is provisions for, now I think you can see in the one provision for supply and use of electricity in multi-storied building more than 15 meters in height. And now you see the sub-regulation number 3. Actually, I tried reading it and I am totally confused, the meaning of it. Can you put some light on it? You have to unmute. You have to unmute, Saliji.
Yeah. Actually, the heading of regulation number 30, there should be a change. That should be multi-story building and high-risk buildings. That should have been the proper wording, because under this, they mention that other buildings are also included. So that is somewhat confusing, like airports and hospitals, where the height doesn't come into the picture every place. Regarding that, there are few additions in this regulation. I would like to mention that one point where they mention there should be a switch for the building, which should come to completely isolated supply of the building. That is interpreted wrongly, because emergency services always have to bypass to this switch. If you see the IEC 60364 part 556, they have given a sample diagram of this tape. They call it a fire switch. According to that switch, if you see, they have bypassed all emergency services before placing this switch in the circuit. So this correction is very much needed, because while the evacuation process is there, emergency services must run on, and with the switch in off position, that cannot be done. All emergency lighting, all your security services, door openings, or smoke extraction systems, everything will fail. Escape routes lighting, etc., etc. So I think there should be connection for these emergency services. Another thing is that if you see regarding the fire retardant low smoke cables, I think they have mentioned the FRLS cable for the high-rise buildings, but I think there should be at least FRLS cable shall be used. That wording should have been there, because HFFR cables are also there, and use of HFFR cable, they are specifically mentioned for certain type of buildings. So it shouldn't be like that. One more part which could have been added in this, that AFDD they could have added in this, because in National Electrical Code we already have given suggestion to make a provision of AFDD. So that is very much needed in case of high-rise buildings. So few things I think still are required in this regulation, which should actually be necessary from the point of view of evacuation processes and all that.
My
Sir.
question is specific.
Can
For
we-
example,
Sir, I would like to, Mr. Gopa,
yes,
So
please.
I would like to supplement. Actually, the technicalities we did not deal much, because the NEC has been made mandatory. So these can be done. Actually, the actual problem is under sub-regulation 3, all the 1 to 6 are deemed to be absorbed by the other buildings. We did not bother about sub-regulation 1 and 2 to apply for this. So AFDD or whatever you think you require, that can be implemented under the NEC for various buildings like hospitals. Everything, building classification is there. So the main concern is implementation, not the technical things to be inferred and applied. The implementation comes into picture for the building which height exceeds 15 meters. There ends the matter. When they insert the provision of other buildings under sub-regulation 3, it means that these buildings can observe the following sub-regulations 1 to 6, and that would suffice. Electrical inspector need not inspect. That is one part of interpretation. Another part, whether these buildings are to be inspected statutorily, that is absent totally. If these buildings, some clinics will be available in every street, some stadium, academic buildings, everything will be available. Who is going to inspect? What is the mechanism available? What's the enforcing mechanism available in this country? So I presume that the sub-regulation 3, other buildings are quite a complicated thing to be exercised under any of the statutory provisions are available now. That is my inference, sir.
Yes, that means other premises such as airports, hospital, hotels, place of entertainment, irrespective of height.
Sir, can I add some point?
Yes, please, sir.
Sir, actually, this high-rise building means it is entirely a different category. As per NBC, these are the buildings having height more than 15 meters in NBC. But in the same NBC, it is said that the height of the high-rise building is depending upon the local fire laws. For example, in Bombay, it is 32 meters. In Kerala, it is 16 meters. This regulation 38 is entirely different one, which is belonging to the multi-storied buildings having height more than 15 meters. That is an entirely different category and not high-rise building. And as per regulation 38(1), the multi-story buildings having height more than 15 meters need electrical inspector sanction. But as per regulation 3, there are some other category of buildings which are not required to get the permission from electrical inspector. That is what I understand. For example, place of worship. Suppose it is a church having height 30 meters. That is not, that will not come under electrical inspector category. That is what I understand.
So, sir, according to you, all high-rise buildings, multi-storied buildings more than 15 meters need inspection, except these airport, hospital, hotels, and other these places.
See,
so these places doesn't
as
need
per regulation 38(3), the following protections or the clauses should be applied for the buildings having height more than 15 meters plus the other buildings. As per regulation 38, the building having height more than 15 meters should get permission from electrical inspector. Is it right? I understand that way.
Yeah, I think this regulation is from the perspective of life safety of the persons in that building, whether it is a 15-meter height building or a hotel of less than 15-meter height building. So from that perspective, the height doesn't matter, only the evacuation and the life safety of the person during the emergency. So that is the important thing. So we should consider this regulation from that perspective. So instead of, I think, mentioning just 15-meter height building, it should have been high-risk building where the occupant load is more. I mean, the number of persons per square meter are beyond certain value, then all those buildings should be considered for high risk as a high-risk building.
Okay, that means finally the question is whether these buildings, irrespective of height, do they need inspection by the inspectorate or not?
Yes, it should need inspection. It should need
inspection is mandatory for these buildings.
There is no legal.
If its height is more than 15 meters.
Sir,
we are actually
this height is from the point of evacuation, because as you increase the number of stories, so evacuation process becomes very, very difficult. See, there is no lift except fire lift.
Sir, that is correct. That is correct. You see, we know the subject and we can interpret it in one way. Whereas imagine a person who doesn't know much about the evacuation, or he is not thinking about the evacuation or other complications. How does a normal electrical engineer understand this regulation? The first question is, okay, more than 15 meters multi-storied building, electrical inspectorates, the inspection is required. Whereas for these buildings, such as airport, hospital and all, irrespective of height, whether it is in a 5-meter height hospital, does it need inspection or not?
It should require.
So that is the question. In my view, I would say this is not very clear. Probably.
Sir, Mr. Gopa, I can say why they classify this building. The purpose of classification is describing the height limitation. Above 15 meters, direct, no problem. Below 15 meters, only these buildings will come. If there are any buildings like stadium or test lab, no test lab with a multi-story building and industrial installation, these are vague and very many terms. Anything can be brought under these. Several lakhs of buildings can be brought under these categories. Not only airport or stadium or public assembly. It involves some other installations also, explosive, flammable. It's a generic thing, but unfortunately, the legal teeth is totally missing. You can't insist, electrical inspector can't go and inspect because he has been already interested with building of 15 more than 15 meters height. How they can take these, under what category? Do these require specific permission? No. Anybody can put a question, any law people can put a question, it doesn't come under. But safety is separate thing. When the regulation itself is not bothered about the safety, how can we jump into the field and enforce safety? That's a problem for the inspectors. They can't do these sub-classification. Then purpose of sub-classification itself is to avoid inspection. That's my view.
Actually, sir, in the draft, I still remember in the draft, it was written, these buildings, irrespective of height.
Yes.
There was a wording, and here that wording, irrespective of height, is missing. That is the reason for all these confusions. Probably you just imagine, for example, railway or metro stations, irrespective of building and other public building, it would have been much better. So draft was much better. Now this particular change. So we have a limited time. Let me go to the next question. The question is to James Kutty, sir. The question is about regulation number 39, especially a sub-regulation number 3. You see this one. Basically this following this regulation, the distance, for example, what is your say on this?
Actually, it is
Especially
just
on the bare conductor on the back side of the system.
yeah. It is just a copy from the older regulation. I think it is okay that a 20 centimeter, I think somewhere it is there, 20 centimeter. If it is completely sealed and if the clearance is below 20 centimeter, I think no issue. Otherwise, it should be more than 75 centimeter. I think it is okay because for maintenance, that panel should be shifted from there for maintenance. Otherwise, 75 centimeter is okay. I think it is okay.
Yeah.
Actually, you carefully read the regulation 3B. There is a wording. If there are bare conductors, the question is bare conductors. In normal switchboards, bare conductors requires attention, frequent opening, their rear opening. Openable doors will be available. People have to go and do some termination or maintain something. In that condition, how can you restrict the entry less than 25 centimeters? That is not correct. The wording, bare connection, should not come into this area. Actually, there is some change from the, it may be some typographical error or some unintentional insertion. This is wrong. If there are any bare connection, people will have to move to the back side and they have to have more than 75 centimeters. If you receive the entry less than 20, it will be inviting danger. So you have to go through the previous regulation.
Basically, sir, the bare conductor, it has to be removed probably.
I think can you see, there is a change. It appears there is a change from the previous regulation. It is something inserted, I think. Unless I go through the previous regulation, I can't say that whether it is in insertion or not. Let me check up. If possible, you can also check, Mr. Gopa, from 2010. What's the relevant regulation? I think 37 is the relevant regulation.
Yeah. Sir,
Okay, one thing, Gopal Kumar, I would like to add. See, in our NEC Part 1, Section 22, that speaks about electrical safety, we have given the arc flash distances, clearances, restricted area, prohibited area. Like that, we have clarified what are the distances. And that is as per the arc flash hazard assessment. So this, whatever they have mentioned here, 1 meter or 20 centimeters, that doesn't correlate with the requirements we have given in the NEC Part 1, Section 22. So this regulation should be reviewed from that point also.
Yeah. So thanks for all of you to answer these questions. Now probably we can take up some of the questions from the question answers. But before that, I would like to add one small point. If we look at IS 732 Annexure A, which is talking about the let me open that 1 moment, please. Anakshar A, provision for basic protection, various enclosure, or it is talking about the arms reach. So basically this has come, I think, from the arms reach point of view for as a measure against basic protection, but the wording is not correct. The bare conductor, this would have been much, this would have been improved. Anyway, probably we can also talk about it later. So I'm just starting with some of the questions. We have a lot of questions in our Q&A, and the members, those who wanted to ask question, you please put the questions in the Q&A. We will not be able to take up all the questions. So it starts with Mr. Elaling. I wanted to see clarification regarding guidelines outlined in NEC 2023 and NBC 2016. Especially, I would like to understand the implications of adhering only to the must guidelines while disregarding the recommended guideline. Can a building or installation be considered compliant with the code of practice if it only follows the mandatory guidelines and ignore the recommended ones? So who can take up this answer? Probably Saliji. The question is the NEC and NBC is made mandatory, and there are something for which is also recommended. So if the recommended is not followed, will it be okay? Is the question. You have to unmute yourself.
If we go as per the word, the recommended thing, we cannot make, cannot say it's mandatory. So that is just the recommendation. But if the electrical inspector gives an order that this thing should be as per this, then that becomes a mandatory. So that is actually discretion of electrical inspector. If you see section 146, any order given by electrical inspector not followed, then that becomes punishable. So electrical inspector can order that recommendation, that he can convert it as an order and convert it as a mandatory part.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And another thing which I have seen in the, I mean, local bodies who give the permission of the building for occupancy, they just mention that provisions should be as per National Building Code. But if you see their formats of giving occupancy certificates and checklist, I think electrical part is almost negligible in any of their format. So there are few points regarding the transformer substation, but regarding internal wiring electrical installation, no points are included. So NBC is not, so far was not mandatory. Now it's good thing that it has been brought into this regulatory part of electrical regulations also.
Yeah, actually, this is a big relief for me because, you know, the non-standard lightning protection, NBC has asked not to use ESE lightning rods. And now, since NBC is made mandatory, now early streamer emission devices legally is not valid in India, which is a good move, let me say. Now, there are some questions regarding some technical questions which are not related to the regulation. So I skip these questions. And there is a question from Mr. Arvind Deshmukh. Regulation 80 shall be discussed for PTCC approval from 11 kV. So let me show the regulation 80. I think this power, the technical committee.
Telecom and
yeah, telecom and this committee. Let me show you the regulation number 80. Yes. So regulation number 80 is protection against electromagnetic interference. The owner or the of every electric supply line of voltage 11 kV and above shall obtain clearance of Power Telecommunication Coordination Committee to ensure the safety of personnel and telecommunication line as per the requirement of section 160 of the Act. Can anybody answer on this?
See, this is requirement as per Telegraph Act. That section is from that only, I think. But such clearances are never taken. I haven't seen such clearances are taken. So I have attended few of the meetings of this PTCC, but most of the things just remain on paper. So that's not being followed.
Okay, but here it is talking about protection against electromagnetic interference, EMI. It is not talking about
Yes,
personal safety. It's only talking about EMI.
Yes, yes.
So
I
What-
think
what can
there
we
is
do?
So that
another regulation is also there. Means suppose there is an electric line and telecommunication line. The second coming line authority should get the permission from the first authority.
Yes, the new line coming in vicinity of telecommunication line, so clearance has to be taken. But see, there are no overhead lines nowadays, so that question doesn't arise. There, most of the lines are underground now. And instead of underground lines, in our regulation, I think number 70 or something, they have given the what should be the clearance between telecom cable and power cable. So I think
actually,
it is
the
30
question is regulation 80. Is it applicable from 11 kV onwards? Yes, the answer is very clear because the regulation says 11 kV and above. So this clearance is required for 11 kV and above.
Yes, right.
So 11 kV is included. So
Yes.
that
Yes.
is right.
So for
Actually-
33 kV, 33 kV, the distance is now is 30 centimeters, and about 66 kV or so, the distance is 60 centimeters. That is mentioned in regulation.
Yeah.
Sir, Gopal sir, I would like to supplement. I attended several telecom PTCC coordination meeting some years back, 10 years back. Now these things are not coming. I don't know, because of absence of almost overhead telecommunication line. There is a stringent measure that whenever a parallel feeder, say 110 kV power line feeder trips or something happens, there will be induction in the telecommunication lines. That's the purpose. That is electromagnetic interference, not interference. Any people who work in a dead line parallel to any EHV line can suffer damage due to induction from that line. That's why parallelism should be avoided in general. The regulation should be observed, whether the lines are existing or not. If anything comes into picture, then it should be observed. How can we totally avoid that particular regulation, the act, which actually arising from the act itself? The regulation should be observed. It is my opinion.
Yeah. Thank
There
you.
can
Thank
be
you.
some,
Now
there can be
is a
some
interesting question.
overline in future or something existing. We
Yeah,
can't rule
sir,
out.
there is an interesting question which is straight directly related from Mr. Prince Singh. Is this regulation applicable to older buildings and factories, or is it applicable for new installations only? Is it retrospective? Sir, Shishiraj sir, what is your opinion on this?
Yeah, it will be retrospective only. So not to the existing ones.
Okay, so that means whatever going to come in the future, this is
Yes,
applicable. So not for the old buildings.
not for the old ones.
Okay, thank you. So somebody again asked the regulation 80 shall be discussed. Yes, we already discussed it. A lot of questions still about earthing. Somebody asking, earth bit insulated. So these questions we are sorry that we cannot take up the question. Today's discussion is more about the regulations. So again, one question: in case of neutral earthing of genset and transformer, what shall be the minimum 2 earth electrode is insulated? Okay, these are technical questions, not related. Gentlemen, Mr. Bera, please note that the regulation is talking the generator and transformer terminals as well as body to be connected to a common bus bar, 2 separate connections. That is the requirement. So, but whereas your question, you were asking about earth electrodes and all, which is not applicable. Actually, there are several questions, but there is no question really related to the regulation. Somebody is asking a requirement to prevent the fire for solar installations. Have anybody saw a requirement included in the regulation about fire in solar PV?
I think there is a separate regulation, chapter 10 in regulation talks about solar. And in connection with that, you refer NEC Part 8, which talks about rapid shutdown and fire protection.
Yeah, actually, Chapter 10 talks about the safety requirements for renewable energy stations from Regulation 119 onwards. So it talks about renewable energy stations, then safety for solar PV. This is Regulation number 121. So it talks generally, there is nothing about fire in this particular case specifically. You have to refer the
There is a
relevant
clause,
standards.
requirement to, yeah, it is there, I think, on page number 144, 121.4. 121.4, I think. There
And yes, there is a sub-regulation. The 121 sub-regulation number 4, it says a requirement to prevent fire from solar installation. A fire detection system and automatic fire suppression system shall comply with the relevant standards. Okay, the fire detection and suppression systems are specified, but you see, if we look at the NEC, the requirement at the DC side, the DC arcing is highly dangerous and it can create continuous fire which will spoil the whole installation, the whole building, if it is a rooftop. For avoiding DC arcing, especially on the solar PV, double insulation is made mandatory, or you cannot compromise double insulation. But most of our solar PV installations, especially inside the combiner box, double insulation measures are compromised. That is the reason most of the fire in solar PV are in the combiner box, because double insulation is missing. Also, sometimes people use normal wires with single insulation for this application. These are actually violations. So the first is you should comply to the standards as well, not only providing the fire detection and suppression system. So I'm actually reading questions one by one, but a lot of questions again regarding earthing. I don't know when our nation is going to be free from these earthing questions and free from this chemical earth. So probably I request the panelists, you also please go through the questions. There are so many questions, and okay, somebody is asking regarding lightning arrestor. Can you explain once again, please, Mr. Gopinath? Mr. Gopinath, if you use any surge arrestor, let it be low voltage or high voltage, the length of the connecting wire has to be as short as possible, because the idea of the surge arrestor is to limit the transient over voltage which is going into your equipment. Let's say, for example, a transformer. If the length of the lead, the connecting lead is more, there is voltage drop on the lead length, which will induce more voltage. The impulse or the clamping voltage will be higher. So in order to have the best effect of lightning arrestor, you have to use the shortest wire length. For a 11 kV or 9 kV surge arrestor, probably 1 or 2 meters is okay. But if you connect the surge arrestor earth lead, imagine the length is 5 meters, approximately 50 kV will be dropped on the wire length itself. The protection level of the surge arrestor plus the wire length will be much more than the impulse withstand voltage of this transformer. So surge arrestor becomes ineffective. That is what it is. So again, Mr. Dilip has asked the question. As per new regulation, now the hospitals which are not of height more than 15 meters need to take approval from electrical inspector by submitting the drawings. I think it is not a question, it's a statement from Mr. Dilip. According to Mr. Dilip, hospitals, even if the height is not 15 meters, they need an approval from the electrical inspector.
That sub-regulation probably is with regard to congregation of people, because that sub-regulation, if you see, all the installations covered in that is with relation to congregation of people, like a stadium, hospital, airport, or railway, and such installation. So there's specific, I think the earlier act also had specific requirement under section 54, where there are congregation of people that you have to have electrical inspectors approval. So the same is replicated here, I feel.
Yes, sir, there is another question. The safety regulation is silent on the following points: whether the oil transformer has an oil capacity below 2000 liters can be provided in the second basement of the building, residential or commercial, industrial, or on the roof of the building.
No,
No, it is not
it
allowed.
is covered.
Actually, we can refer the technical standards for plants and there is given here regulation, I think 2021 the regulations come out. So oil type transformer is not allowed anywhere other than ground and first basement. Dry type transformers, of course, there is no such.
So I will. So I will. There are few people, those who have raised the hand. I am allowing some of the participants. If you wanted to speak, please unmute yourself and you can have your questions directly. Actually, I allowed a few people, but I can't find their names anymore. Mr. Nilesh, Mr. Naresh, you can talk. Also, Mr. Mohan Kulkarni, Mr. Suresh Kannan, Mr. Jai Jyoti Dhar. Your hand is raised, so we presume that you wanted to talk. Mr. Govinathan. Mr. Pera, if you wanted to talk, please.
Hello.
Sir,
Yeah, I'm Gopinath.
Yes, Mr. Govinathan, please.
Yeah, my voice. I hope my voice is audible.
Yeah.
Regarding that LA we have discussed, sir. Can you share the picture once again, sir? What you shared, that LA picture.
The surge arrestor.
Yes.
Okay. I will put it in the chat box
Okay.
very soon. Quickly, I will put it in the chat box.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
hello.
So,
Sir,
yes,
this
Mr. Dara.
is Joydhar from Haldia Petrochemicals. I have a question is, see, we have these engineers and diploma engineers. Now, as per regulations, do they require to have separate license again from licensing board, electrical license?
Yeah, it is required.
For all engineers and diploma engineers?
I think you have to designate them for the purpose of for the duties which you are assigning to them. So designation should be given. Against
They are
I think the regulation requires that when they are, appointed by consumers, it is a requirement by the state act on licensing that they have to have the licenses or permits issued by the state. It is applicable in Karnataka. Yes, they have to, immaterial of their qualification, they have to have the permits and licenses.
So basically, they have to get the license from Karnataka. If
Yes.
this is the facility in Karnataka, what about Maharashtra, Saliji?
I think if the person is designated for the particular task of work, and if his name is given in that list, which he has to keep the record, and electrical inspector can go and check, and even reject his name if he's not capable of doing that duty. So that supervisor license or such things are not required.
Okay, that means only a person who is having the supervisory license can be listed in this particular task.
No, not necessarily. He need not have any supervisor's license. Only the company should designate him for the particular task of work.
No, so this is basically dependent on the state.
To a certain
Actually,
extent,
the
yeah.
interpretation may differ. Mr. Appau may put some light on this.
I think Mr. Apau is no more.
Are we talking
yeah.
about
One second.
relation 3?
Yes.
Sir, Apau, sir, can you hear?
This is yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hello.
Am I audible?
Actually, regulation. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, you're audible, please.
Am I audible? Yes. The question raised was whether the designated, the listed person, all the diploma or degree holders can be listed to undertake the safety clearance, safety work within the premises. It's a must. As per Regulation 3, only the persons are notified by the state licensing board. That is, the government has sent up to the state licensing board to do the work by the competent certificate holders. Irrespective of the qualification, they have to, whether they have diploma or degree, they have to be conversant with the nature of work, with the safety work. They can be extended somewhere else, not in the safety safety field. So that's why that particular with regard to the designated person, there is no.
Yeah, sir, your voice is too less. We got the message. The message is.
I mean,
Sir, as per Regulation 3.3, it is a must to have the permit from the appropriate government. This clearly mentioned.
Means, he has to pass the appropriate certificate from the licensing board of the respective.
Yeah. It is mentioned in Regulation 3.3, no doubt.
Okay, Mr. Dar, I hope you are.
But there will be an exemption for engineers and diploma by the respective state, depending on the whichever state. There are exemptions. So an engineer directly gets his permit. So that itself is enough. He need not appear for an exam in Karnataka. But other than an engineer or a diploma, he has to appear.
So that means it is even some of the states, there are some changes from the regulation. Now, actually, we have Mr. Bera, Subrat Kumar Bera. You please ask your question, sir.
Yes, sir. I am basically from the, I am retired from Indian Oil Corporation, and I am having the oil and gas sector. That is my major question is related to the earthing. Earthing is the lifeline for the bottling plant, LPG bottling plant, and the storage units. And only thing I want to know that what would be the minimum distance between the two electrodes? But at some places it is 1 meter, and some places.
The question is understood. May I answer? The question is understood. Yeah. May I answer? Now, for your petroleum installation, are you following the OISD standard, Oil Industry Safety Directorate standards?
Not able to hear.
Are you following? Are you following OISD standards?
Yes, we are following the OISD standards as well as.
No, let me answer, sir. Let me answer. Your question is very well understood. Yeah. In most of the oil industry installation, the OISD standards are used, and your question is regarding the earthing. I am so sorry to make a comment here. Whatever written in some of the OISD standards are really big foolishness. Sorry to use the word foolishness. In the sense, if you wanted to see, I can show you the regulations as well. Not the regulation, the OISD standards. It says electronic equipment need a separate earthing of 1 ohm. Lightning protection separate earthing of 7 ohm. Transformer neutral need a separate earthing of 2 ohm. I don't know from where such foolish ideas came into a very, very important rule which is followed in all over India in the oil and gas sector. We have written so many letters to this authority telling them that this is wrong. And in the specification of OISD standard, they have also written that all these are as per IS 3043. It is absolutely wrong. IS 3043 never written to make separate. Now your OISD standard has written it, and all over India, your petroleum installations, your gas storage installations are following this unsafe procedure, and this is the reason for failure. I'm so sorry to make this comment, sir. Hope the answer is clear. What you are following is absolutely wrong. It is technically wrong. Let me or let us go to the next questions. Mr. Mohan Kulkarni, if you wanted to speak, you can do it. So I don't know, my harsh answer would have been, it was too harsh. Probably Hemant Saliji, you are looking serious. Any comment on it? You are also a member of IS3 ETD20 IS3043.
Sir, may I?
Yes, please.
Sir, regarding that specifically diploma holders that Shashi Rajji has told, only electrical diploma holders are allowed, or any diploma holder who have taken NPTI or PET certification, who is
Only-
allowed to work as authorized?
It is only electrical and electronics in diploma holders only in the state of Karnataka. Earlier, we had even the mechanical ones, which was removed in between 2013 and 2018, and now electronics has been added. So it is only electrical and electronics and nobody else.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
So, Dr. Bhavani,
Yes,
can
sir.
unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hello, sir. I'm in wind industry, and here, if we see this wind farm, generation is 690 volt, and for that a simple USS unitized substation is there. What happens? Around 15 WTG are connected a single line. Okay, sir. So LA normally, as per CIG regulation, LA is installed on the DP, means the top of the DP structure. But when any LA fails, then whole 15 WTG tripped, total feeder tripped. So to avoid this one, LA is put below the isolator, means after isolator for the individual WTG. Means ultimately this LA is for transformer protection basically. 2.3 MVA or 3 MVA transformer is there. So here this is made for the operation point of view. For operation point of view, we can once any LF trip, LF blast in any WTG, that is isolated through the isolator, but another WTG can be run. Means say 14 WTG can run to avoid the generation loss. So this is right or wrong as per protection of the system, lightning protection.
I think it is acceptable. It is acceptable. There is no issue.
I think the issue is whenever there is a surge arrestor failure, the surge arrestor failure is creating, due to the surge arrestor failure, the feeder is tripping. That is the issue. Am I correct?
Feeder is tripping. Yes. Feeder is tripping, and all 15 WTG say 30 megawatt is black out. So to avoid that, means early restoration. When if for example, if one WTG, one USS is identified for LA failure, so replacement will take time. So simply isolate that particular location, or another can be put in generation.
That is allowed.
Sir, the easy way is you please go to IS 15086, IS 15086 part 5. This is a standard which is made during 2020. It is from IEC 60099 part 5. This is talking about selection and application recommendations of surge arrestor. The necessary protective measures of avoiding the tripping of the feeder is included there. Please refer the standard. That is the easy way. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Gopal, sir, you rightly told the standards C099, IEC standard C099 part 5. In most of the locations, what we practically find is the wrong selection of lightning arrestors. In regulation itself also, it is told that you provide a 9 kV lightning. This is not correct. Sometimes it all depends on various factors. The effectiveness of earthing, whether it is solid neutral or NGR earthing. So many things comes into picture. The temporary over voltage ultimately decides the selection of lightning arrestor. At times, you will have to employ a lightning arrestor more than your system voltage, not 9 kV. You may require a 12 kV lightning arrestor also for a 11 kV distribution. So this is the thing. Unless you analyze those selection procedures, you can't have a right matching. The another thing, the actual erection, as Mr. Gopa as well as Mr. James Putty told, the lead length and the closeness, so that the purpose of lightning arrestor is to safeguard the equipment which is designed for a certain BIL. And if your residual voltage and if your lightning arrestor suffer a residual voltage more than its rating, say for example, a 75 kV BAL transformer can't withstand a voltage of above 100. Similarly, your lightning arrestor also will have to drain the excessive lightning surge, divert the surge. It's only a surge diversion. You should provide a supply continuity as well as the protection of our transformer. There should be a right balance by right selection according to IEC 6099 part 5. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thanks for the detailed answer.
Sir Joydhar, I have another question. For these lightning arresters, suppose in a structure we have 6 lightning arresters. Now this is lightning arresters are going to the 6 earth pit, lightning earth pit, and all these earth pits are connected together through a earth grid. Now there is separate earthing grid also for the electrical earthing. Now, can the electrical earthing and this lightning earthing grid be connected together? Means on the same earth grid. That means I connect my lightning earth pit as well as the electrical earth pit, or I have to prepare 2 separate earth grids and then bond them together.
Sir,
To make it simple,
you
please
can't separate any earth electrode.
Please have a look at the screen. This is from the IS standard. In fact, in the heading you are seeing IEC, but this is the IS standard which I have just referred. There are 3 ways of connecting: connection 1, 2, and 3. Connection 1 is a poor connection because you see the length L3 between the zinc oxide. Let me zoom it again. Between the lightning LMO zinc oxide, that is the surge arrestor, and T is the transformer, there is a large loop standing with L2, L3, L5, L4. There is a large loop due to this wire length or due to the length of this the loop. Your surge arrestor is not efficient in this case. That means if you are connecting your surge arrestor through a separate insulated conductor or a bare conductor insulated from the metallic parts of your installation, and if you are connecting it to a separate earth electrode, technically your surge arrestor or the lightning arrestor, whatever the name we call, it will not protect your transformer. Now the connection number 1 for an extra high voltage, let's say 66 kV, 132 kV, 220 kV, it may work because the lead length is only 5 meters, 6 meters. But this and the withstanding voltage of the transformer of that voltage is very high. Whereas for 11 kV or 22 kV transformer, the impulse withstanding voltages are quite less. It's not in hundreds of kVs. It is much less. Let's say an 11 kV transformer, it's about 75 kV. So 5 meter wire length itself is a problem. Now in that particular case, you go for the connection number 2 or 3. The surge arrestor lead earth wire has to be connected to the transformer tank itself. In this case, connection number 2 or 3, you get the best possible protection from or by using the surge arrestor. Connection number 1 is okay for extra high voltage, but not for 11 kV or 22 kV or 33 kV distribution class. So I hope the answer is, or we hope the answer is clear. Please refer the standard. Very clear explanations are given.
Thank you, sir.
So, any other questions? We have made some more people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, myself, Smruti from Odisha.
Yes, please.
No. Sir, actually, for the chartered safety engineers, they are not allowing the DISCOM engineers. Sir, can we be allowed or not for chartered safety engineers?
I don't know who can answer this question. Saliji, you are on mute.
it is already defined by Central Electricity Authority. They have prepared on guideline. As per that guideline, I think DISCOM engineers are not adequate. Sir, Sally sir, you please.
Sir, you have to unmute.
Yeah, I think the state can allow the DISCOM engineers to act as chartered safety engineers. That is within the scope of state. So state to state, the rules may differ.
In our state, I think 5 years.
I think
minimum 5 years is required. Then only they are supposed to come into any electrical field.
Yeah, but regarding this supply engineers, what will happen? Checking their own installation and certifying, that will not be correct. I think it should be cross-certified. The person who carries out the work should not certify himself as a chartered engineer. Somebody else should certify it.
That's precisely why electrical inspector came into the picture.
No, see, we have to reduce the inspector, Rajna. Everything
I
is
know.
that and yes.
Yes,
Sir, is it a retired engineers or in service engineers?
Retired.
Retired. Okay.
I think Mr. Smriti
In service cannot come at all.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Pradhan's question is whether a working engineer from the DISCOM, can he be a chartered safety engineer additionally?
This one rules does not provide for them to work anywhere else. Or
Guidelines. Yeah. Guidelines do not allow the person to work somewhere anywhere else, engage in any government or semi-government as employees. So that is the reason.
Standing rule.
Yes.
Okay, so I think we have passed almost 2 hours, and it went so fast. So actually, before making a vote of thanks, I would like to say sorry to all of you. I was a little bit, regarding the question from the oil industry. Actually, my problem is in the oil industry that standard, it is written, the mistakes are written, and at the bottom it is written as all these mistakes are made as per IS 3043. As a committee member of ETD 20 and responsible for making IS 3043, I would say, if OISD standard removes as per IS 3043, I have no problem. So it is up to them whether to change or improve their standard. It has nothing to do with us or with the committee members of ETD 20. But if you make a wrong a requirement in your standard and ask it as per IS 3043, then it is our quality of work itself is getting affected. That is why I was a little bit angry. I'm so sorry for that. So thanks to all the participants as well as the panelists. Shashiraj sir, thank you very much for participating and patiently answering the questions. Hemant Sali ji, also James Kutty ji, Amritilal, also Apav sir is traveling and he is in his native. I think he joined through his phone. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks to all of you for patiently answering the question. Probably we can also have one more session in the same subject, maybe after 2 or 3 weeks. So if all of you agree and if we can make a common date, we can have one more session. So with this, probably we can end up the session. If you have any points, the panelists are invited to make comments for if you have any comments. Shashiraj sir, any comments?
Well, right now, I don't think so, because as I told you, it is, the way guidelines have come very recently and we need to interact with each provision and see how it fits into the present circumstances. So I think it will take little time for us to again look into the practical aspect of application of these regulations, and then we can probably come out with a better view on this.
So Sali ji.
Yeah. I think we should appreciate the efforts taken by CA. Really, there are some good changes which we have been expecting. but still we have to travel a bit more. And for that, I think the regular revision session should be taken, and as per these reviews, some amendments if required that should be considered.
Thank you, sir. James, could you say?
Sir, regarding that oil and explosive regulations, PESO is having main role. So you, Govomar, you please have contact with the PESO engineers. They need adequate training in lightning protection and electrical safety. It is a must.
Sir, actually, regarding this one, that OISD, I am following up with them for almost now 5-6 years. I have written several letters. Nobody is bothered. Then recently, about 3 months back, I sent an email which was a little bit harsh. So then after making a harsh comment on the email, then suddenly everybody woke up and they started replying saying we are going to change this particular requirement. Anyway, if they are changing or not changing is none of my business. If they remove as per IS 3043, my job is done. Because they make a mistake, and how can they put their mistake into our shoulder? I hope you understood. So anyway, we will put our effort and we will see that we will be changing it. Finally, to Appav sir, any comments, sir?
Yes, sir. See, we have dealt with a lot of the enforcement provisions implementation. This is not sufficient. Actually, CEA regulations have come out with a more optimistic way. We have to improve, because improvement is a never-ending process. We are having still, after so many programs conducted by our group, that is NFE, we have been facing such basic questions from the same members who attended the meeting. So, in my opinion, improvement is a never-ending process. It should be done. But unfortunately, we are going it in a very low pace. Let us all rise to the occasion and make ourselves competent, confident to provide safety measures to the people at large. Thank you. That's all what my message to the people. Thank you for the opportunity.
Also, Mr. Amritlal, you were raising the hand. Any questions?
No, just one point. See, we are on the world stage, like India is on the world stage, and when we put up some regulations, the wordings are also very important. I find a lot of places where gender neutrality is not observed. Okay, so that is a very small point, but I think very important.
Yeah. I'm showing the screen of the CEA. You can download the regulation from this particular website, which is CEA. Also, I would like to show our organization, NFE, National Federation of Engineers for Electrical Safety. We are a newborn society, not for profit organization. The members are, there are about 500 members in last 3 months. We started our activity in 10th of March 2023. The mission is to make every electrical installation free from accidents. So we are taking a lot of efforts to make awareness. We request the participants, if you are interested, please join our association and put your efforts so that we can make a nation free of electrical accidents. There are different kind of membership facilities available. Individual member, the annual fee is about 1,000 rupees and registration fee is 500 rupees. We are making a lot of classes, and you can participate in all our classes at free of cost. Not all the training courses. There are some training courses which is where we have to pay for the venue as well as for the trainer. Except those cases, it's free. So with this, we would like to stop with the program. I hope there is no question. We will come back to you by the next 2. The same question or the new questions can be taken up. And if you have any further questions, you please mail us. You can go to the NFE website. You can mail us so that your questions can be addressed in the next session. So thank you very much, and thanks to all the participants as well as the panel members to patiently sit with us for more than 2 hours and actively participating in this discussion. We have a lot of participants raised their hands, as well as there are several questions. We are so sorry that due to the time limitation, we are unable to answer all your questions, but we will definitely take it up further and we will answer your questions. So thanks to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Lakshmi, you can